go back into 2012 now. We built a lot of background for this. So let's go into 815 AD, which is actually the first documented record of crop circles coming down. Crop circles are not new, and they have messages in them in the form of pictures written into crops, and those pictures will show us that there is somebody out there who wants us to figure out a puzzle, wants us to solve a mystery. 815 AD, if you look at these lavish, sunny, lovely quarters, it's actually very Gothic and gloomy. This is the Archbishop of Lyon issuing an edict called Against the Foolish Opinion of the Masses About Hail and Thunder. People believed in cloud ships from a place they called Magonia. What do you think a cloud ship is? You think that's a cloud? No. Think about it. Cloud ship is not a cloud. Cloud ship is something that they see flying in the air, and they say, well, clouds fly in the air. It's a cloud ship. And they believed that these cloud ships were flattening crops into circles because the cloud ship says, well, I'm going to protect you from bad weather, but here's what you need to do for me. If I'm going to protect you, then you need to let me flatten these circles out in your crops. It's kind of a weird deal to make with cloud ships, but what the hell? That's what they thought was going on. Agobard issued a prohibition against any locals taking seeds out of the crop circles for pagan fertility rituals. So what that means is that people were getting a bliss hit from the energized crops. They would build little huts out of them and stuff, and they'd want to have a pagan fertility ritual in them, which of course means what were they doing inside the little grass hut? I wonder. So that was purely subconscious. I had no idea what I'm doing there. Or I could go. No, there's no subtext. I'm not giving you any subtext. Obviously, what's going on is that the farmers are getting really angry because they're losing their crops. So the farmers start saying, hey, you guys, stop doing this. And they say, no, man, check it out. The energy is amazing. The farmers are like, oh, my God. So back then, the church was basically the government. So they go to basically the equivalent of the government, and they say, hey, look, okay, we got to stop these people. So Agobard, being also the governor, basically, has to issue this prohibition. Well, guess what it was all built around? It was built around crop circles, perfect circles in the crop 1,200 years ago. Are crop circles new? No. All right, Elf Ringewort is a fairy ring, a ring of daisies caused by elves dancing, a legend that dates to the 12th century. I found this on Wikipedia, of all places. This is the people that are partying and dancing and making the thing fall down in the angelic realm. That's what they believe caused these rings from 1880. This is a strange story. Look at this. This is the equivalent of headline news in 1678. This is what happened. Somebody comes over to chop down a farmer's crop. He's called a mower. The mower wanted a lot of money. The farmer wasn't willing to pay that much. So the farmer gets all pissed off and says, I'd rather have the devil chop down these crops than you, man. That night, the farmer's in bed and the whole field lights up like it's on fire. The perfect circle appeared in the crops the next morning, as it says in this thing you just saw, so neatly mowed that no mortal man could have done it. Well, now we believe that it's a bunch of drunk guys walking around. Hey, isn't this great? We're making a crop circle. That's not the way it worked back then. They were smart enough to know that no person could have done this. So this is the illustration. So, of course, if no person could have done it, it's got to be the devil. It's obvious. Everybody knows that. So it's the devil. There he is doing his little job. He's going around doing his thing. Okay, now we have Dr. Robert Plot, who's at the beginning of the Renaissance, a very educated and enlightened scientist who was smart enough to look at the hip bone of a megalosaurus and see something entirely different. It's the world's first homoerotic paleontologist because he saw the scrotum of a giant here. What a boner that would be. All right, so what he did is he started to look at these crop circles forming, and he actually drew pictures of them in the 1600s. These are his actual photographs. These are not just circles, quote unquote. That's a spiral. That looks like somebody's ear with a sound wave going into it. And here is a perfect square inside a perfect circle. So Dr. Robert Plott's educated hypothesis was, oh, well, there's a piece of square wind, you say, and the square wind is making a square hole in the crops. That's actually not much better than what modern scientists are trying to say for crop circles now. So nothing has changed in 400 years, unfortunately. He also found that the soil underneath the crop circles was much drier than ordinary, which smelled like moldy bread, but then what does the guy do? He puts it in his mouth and he tastes it. That's a dedicated scientist. Oh my God, it's horrible. Except he found that it didn't taste bad. So what do we know this is? This is all the water being zapped out of the soil. It's totally dried out. That's a cosmic thing that happened. That's a extraterrestrial technology.
Taped. As with so many UFO sightings caught on camera, a careful look at the video evidence reveals a lot. Look here at the bizarre patterns themselves. In a real-life scene reminiscent of the hit movie Close Encounters of a Third Kind, it isn't hard to conclude some type of communication is being attempted by way of the odd, yet intentional light display. And this is not the only UFO video case where mysterious objects are making complex designs for all to see. Stonehenge, England, 1996. This video is perhaps even more intriguing. The video shows two UFOs circling slowly over a wheat field. Below them, the impression of an intricate crop circle appears.
As if by magic, these things just moving around, and all of a sudden there is this structure. Now, that structure is known as a real structure. It was videotaped and seen by many people after this tape was made.
Dr. Gil Levengood documented the same thing in the 1990s, exactly the same thing, so it's still working the same way. In the late 1940s, somebody witnessed a whirlwind touching down and forming a circle in the corn. He believed it was wind. In only 3 or 4 seconds, you have this perfect sharp-edged circle that was very large, 3 or 4 meters wide, happen. It's about 30 feet. Not quite 30 feet, but it's big. It's like 15, 20 feet. August 1972 in Warminster, he hears a noise. Something pushes down the wheat, but check out the last line. What does it say? The air was what? Completely still. There's nothing going on. No wind that could have explained what happened here. In front of my eyes, I could see a great imprint taking shape. The wheat was forced down in a clockwise direction. He hears a high-pitched humming noise, and the circle opens up like an oriental fan unfolding. Guess what, guys? That's not weather, that's not wind, that's not a bunch of drunk guys walking around stamping down the crops. This guy witnessed it. We can put people in prison based on eyewitness testimony. That's what he saw. Well, let's stop talking about him and start looking at him, because that's where it gets more fun. Here you have the original type of circles you'd see, and then you start to get these patterns of 4, and there's a little one down here that was originally called grape shot. These kinds of patterns start showing up all the time. 2 circles connected by a line with this little arch, or sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't, which in pagan symbolism is the pregnant goddess. This is the pregnant belly, here's the head, and here's the arms. But of course, the circle makers couldn't be content by showing us such primitive diagrams, so they came back a couple years ago and they did this. Oh, sorry. Here we have the goddess, of course, in a geometric form, but it's very clearly obvious that's what we're seeing again. This is the rebirth of the earth coming into being. You see 3 goddess formations in this from 1990. This was Alton Barnes, 1990. It made it onto the cover of the Led Zeppelin CD box set, actually. That's a much nicer version of the photograph, too, before everybody tamped it down like you see in this one. All this footsteps messing it up over here. That's not there. Well, this one is one of the greatest ones in terms of the impact that it had. Richard Hoagland was really the one who made this the most popular. It shows, basically, we think it shows first dimension, second dimension, third dimension, and then fourth in the middle, the geometry. These lines are perfectly equated with a tetrahedron inside a sphere. This is a situation where a bunch of people were sitting around studying crop circles, and they said, oh, wow, wouldn't it be great if they did a Mandelbrot set, this fractal? The very next day, it shows up in the crop. So somebody's listening.